So we have an agenda which I circulated a few days ago. The agenda is that, sorry for this initial delay, but we have already covered the introduction. I had 10 minutes, but we are almost 7 minutes already. So this is the workshop related with the presentations and roundtable for the projects Knowing, Nevermore, and DISTENDER. I'm chairing the session and as coordinator of the DISTENDER European project. And we will have basically 3 presentations with 20 minutes each one. And then finally a roundtable for another 20 minutes, starting at 11:10. The first presentation will be for the Knowing European Union project. It will be done by Mattia Leone. The second presentation is Nevermore, 20 minutes later after European project. The 3 projects are part of the same call, so we call it sister projects. And as I said, the third presentation, Nevermore, is from Alexia or Ivan. Then you will let me know. And finally, my presentation for another 20 minutes. In principle, we had the contributions from Icons and Standard Base, but I don't think that at the end they will be here because they have another compromises, but we will see. So if not, I will do the presentation. Then we will have a round table trying to fix some ideas, some common synergies in order to establish an agenda for the next months with common interest. But because I'm sure that there are a lot of common interest in this workshop. If Mattia, Alexia, and me, we use it a little bit less than 20 minutes for whatever reason, then we will have some time for questions. I will take care about the time. Okay, if Mattia, you finish a little bit earlier, then we can allow 1 or 2 questions. But in principle, all questions and discussions will be done in the round table at the end of the project. I mean, at the end of the workshop, sorry. So the session will end at about 12:30, 1 hour and a half. So, Mattia, the floor is yours. You can share the screen and start your presentation when you like, please. So, Ivan, you are not allowed to share audio and video, as I see in the screen. Yeah, we don't have the control of the session now. The control is done by the company, so I can try to contact one person who is there in order to help me. So one of the options is that we exchange the order. And then, Alexia, are you ready to present your presentation? I mean, to share the screen? Ivan, are you going to do the presentation? No. Okay. So we cannot do any presentation now. Okay. Entonces. Yeah, just a second, please. Just a second. Okay, Mattia,
Okay.
it seems that now the technician was in the room.
Very
Because
good. Can you hear me?
there is a professor there, physically there in the architecture school because of the company. Hello, Alexia.
Hello, finally.
Okay, well, we are a little bit out of time, very complicated because we are in the laboratory here, about 12 kilometers away, the computer school. But there is a professor there, Esther Higueras, and she will help us to call the technician there physically, okay, in the architecture school. So, Mattia, the floor is yours. You have almost 20 minutes. I don't hear you.
Now you're muted.
Yeah.
No,
But
that was me. That was me now. No, I said I will try to make it shorter. I'm sharing now the screen. Can you see?
Yes, everything is okay now. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I will outline a few the structure of the Knowing project and a few highlights that could trigger a discussion afterwards. So thanks, first of all, Roberto, for having set up this workshop and this continued collaboration across these three projects. So I'm happy that we have a long path together, and we are actually more or less at the beginning, even though we started from a while. These are very long projects and also pretty ambitious. So I will start giving some guidance on what is the knowing dimension. I mean, this pretty powerful word, which is knowing, is revolving around knowing what, knowing why, knowing how. So providing a knowledge approach, which is trying to encompass different dimensions, spanning from climate science to social science and technological innovation across sectors. But on the other hand, the ability to transfer this knowledge at different levels to increase awareness and then to make it operational through specific tools and guidelines. So the path that we are trying to build here, it's really based on a strong co-creation, which is leveraging the effort from all knowing partners. We are 18 partners from several European countries in a co-creation process where tools are not only designed by experts, but actually confronted with a wide range also of external stakeholders, including sectoral experts, representatives from local authorities and also citizen communities, to then design tools that actually can respond to specific needs. And these needs and goal to be pretty clear, the project is not that much on advancing on climate science. I mean, there's a lot around there which is really helping. So we are maybe better trying to take the juice out of the most recent development of science when it comes to determining the future hazard related to climate change. But what we are actually focusing upon is to really understand in this mid to long-term scenario the kind of action that we're putting in place. Are they actually targeting the possibility of not triggering future risk, or and of course reducing the extent of the impact that you're already seeing today from climate change, and to really focus on actual pathways across sectors that could be taken and that can lead to climate resilient development that we really intend as integration of mitigation and adaptation of climate change and its connection with the different dimension of sustainable development. So on this, in this point of view, it's really that we know that we don't know, to use this knowing metaphor, but it's really trying to not staying on what we see as our comfort zone, being modelers. Personally, I'm an architect and associate professor in building technology, environmental design, but I'm confronted with many aspects related to social science or climate science, and even the need of delivering my, for example, technical expertise on urban design in a way that can be actioned and understood by many levels of intel that is needed to then make these pathways concrete and actionable. Going a bit into the methods that we are using, the system dynamics modeling is what we believe is now essential to shape and even to drive out from a mere solution-oriented framework in a framework that really understand the interaction that exists across sectors and that make even more complex the challenge of reducing our global warming across sectoral human activities, and understanding that impacts as well span across sectors and from seasonal and yearly trends to climate extremes. There's an overlapping of impact that determine specific element of urgency in different dimensions. We are focusing in 3 climate impact contexts across 4 demos. You've seen, the lens through which we are starting to study to being able to govern and somehow to actually model this system dynamics that, as you can understand from this very sketchy graphic, can be really complex. So heat waves and health, soil fertility in agriculture, and flooding infrastructure, but considering both river and coastal flooding, are some of our main climate impact contexts that we are working upon to build on this dynamic of system. Of course, considering as main system the one that really aggravate the global warming potential, from energy to construction to transportation, to waste management, to land use, of understanding also diversity of context with the urban region, agricultural region, or region that span along rivers or coast. So the goal here through the demos is to have a vision around climate mitigation. So as a main long-term, short, mid to long-term target, the reduction of CO2 equivalent emission, a global warming potential, but to then realize this vision, materialize this vision, define an actual pathway for implementation that is actually looking at the need for adaptation in the specific climate impact context. So at the end of the project, we are hoping to provide new knowledge in the sense that we are working hard to model the sector interrelation and understanding also behavioral aspects that affect a specific response to risks, with, of course, a focus on this climate impact context. We believe that the system dynamic model, which is at the moment working on a qualitative basis, will be then connected to more robust and quantitative-driven hazard impact model that help us to build scenario that are used by decision makers to orient, shape this vision, and implement pathways. The kind of work that we do wants to really to have also a counterpart that goes into ability of communicating science and be very strong with narrative and strong visualization that's really help understand and that's wide and spread over the general public the key messages. But also, and this is also an expectation from this workshop across project, it's really to build up strategic exchange and fostering alliances to deliver common messages. I mean, we believe that a sectoral approach can be no longer applied and to actually, we because of the severity of the climate emergency. So even in this very, very initial sketch of system dynamic related to the specific problem of heat in the city and a heat wave, we can really understand that we cannot, of course, tackle only the efficiency of the public health sector or improve only the energy efficiency of a building, because there are several causal loops that at the end of the day determine even the anthropogenic effect on climate change and on climate change related hazards. So all the potential rebound effect, but also the actual dynamics that our society is facing need to be connected to a more robust and quantitative modeling approach. So this is really a preliminary and current state of work where we are trying to identify interdependencies across sectors. You've seen on the left table some of the sectors we're working on, and as an approach that starts with the specific climate impact context, then it works across sector, and for each sector is start connecting and mapping the critical interaction. But then we know that system dynamics is one part of the problem. On the other hand, we really need to connect with the with more robust and even challenge-specific hazard impact model, the wealth and the richness of climate models that are helping us really to define potential impact scenarios. And less this impact scenario, looking at the mitigation adaptation, we are of course looking at both the most important and recent agreements that we can think about when thinking to climate change. The Paris Agreement to focus on mitigation, and the loss and damage agreement from the last COP27 focusing on the very need for adaptation. Since we are in a conference that is more or less my field as an architect and urban designer, I wanted to bring a bit more about the way we are working when it comes to the ability, the need of connecting climate knowledge to urban microclimate science, and the effect of alternative scenario building, and how the information arising from a mathematical model that helps us, for example, to simulate the effect of heat wave, of floods, needs then to be reported in a different kind of formats, and also operationalized within tools that are, let's say, planner or designer friendly, like GIS tools. You can see here some screens, or Rhino and Grasshopper for 3D and computational design modeling. This allows to bring this knowledge, this information embedded into the planning and design, and be able to develop what if scenario that takes into account the actual effect derived from the change of the physical dimension, but also of the behavioral dimensions that are connected to the climate change in cities in this case. As we were saying, this is not to build by scientists in a lab, but it's really co-created with the full range of stakeholders. We had a very, very long path. Project is ending in June 2026, and we have just started now the work with the regional hubs in these 4 regions kickoff to start discussing with them the advancement that we are producing, but basically co-producing the understanding of the specific challenge that this city is facing, this region is facing, and then build together a vision and the consequent pathways to address integrated mitigation, adaptation, and sustainable development. This means that these are images from initial workshops, start doing collaborative mapping exercise, which means knowledge of what is happening, and you know how silo busting across sector is a key when in complex urban context, for example, many city departments are even not that aware of what the other is doing, and not even mentioning when it comes to private initiative of community initiatives. So the mapping of what is happening on the territory and the priorities across the specific users and sector is a key. I'm from Napoli, so I'm really happy to host one of the 4 case studies of the project, where we are focusing on not only on coastal flood and infrastructure, where, as you see, the focus to integrate mitigation adaptation, it really is going in the direction of a renewable energy, compatible with modern an ecosystem. On the other hand, also inland and offshore nature-based solutions. So we are also working with, for example, with marine scientists to really understand how a healthy ecosystem can support sea carbon sequestration from one side, but also even the specific impact arising from coastal flood. Going to a conclusion, I just want to give you some more elements that I think might be useful to the discussion, at least in this, even in this kind of conference. Some of the tools that we use to prompt and trigger the discussion is to really, and for the visioning exercise that we are preparing, is really to give a sort of an ID card to some of the buzzwords that we're hearing. So zero carbon city, circular city, green blue city, 15-minute cities. These are all words that we really knew even in television by politicians. And sometimes as words as resilience, sustainability, all of a sudden becomes pretty empty in their meaning. So the work that we are trying to do is to really to recognize in some tangible elements of our urban landscape the feature. And this is what architects and planners can do. Of course, the power of visuals that is very, very strongly connected to the ability then of modeling. You've seen in the previous GIS or 3D models that the effect of this solution is then quantified. But it is first of all an empowering also of decision maker and citizen in going beyond the mere buzzwords and really to even understand that at the end of the day, an integrated and climate resilient city is really merging all those visions. And ultimately, in closing with this slide, it's what we are seeing is a real challenge. Addressing to local authorities, planning and even design practitioners, we know the complexity now is linked to the fact that policies out there, we know which are the targets, and even we know which should be the solution, and we know also there are funding available, and we have to implement. But how to do that? And that is where science and technology can help. It's really the knowledge in terms of modeling, simulation, and quantifying benefits on multiple dimensions, not only linked to mitigation and adaptation, but especially to social, economic, and environmental co-benefits of climate action as even driver to boost and accelerate implementation. So not only linking the climate action to the climate mitigation adaptation itself, but especially to the real priorities that emerge in a given local context, and these specific priorities vary a lot, even in the European context. You understand, of course, there are very diverse landscape, and it's not only physical landscape, but also really a political and institutional landscape that require that solutions are diversified, although they should all target to the same main global objectives. That is why in the work with community and stakeholders at large, it's a key, because we believe that only to this real exchange and even the ability of conveying scientific message in a more understandable way to get in turn precious feedback towards what should be done. It's the real challenge for us. It's a real priority, especially because of
Mattia, the time is a little bit over.
Yeah, and it was perfect.
Oh, perfect.
So
perfect of time. Thank you very much, Mattia. Very interesting presentation. And we will have time to discuss and questioning. So, Alexia, please, the floor is yours.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So I will share the screen. Okay. Oh, yeah, maybe from the beginning it's better.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You should see it, but not from the right slide. Okay, now it is. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. So we are here to present the Nevermore project. And together with me, there is Ivan Ramos from the Cartif Technology Center from Valladolid, who is the technical manager of our Nevermore project. So we will both present these slides, but it will be keeping the presentation, let's say. I'm Alessia Torre. I'm the project manager, project manager and project coordinator of Nevermore from the Bruno Kessler Foundation, which is a research center based in the north of Italy. Our project started in June last year, so it is already one year. And it lasts 4 years. It will be concluded in May 2026. We are a partnership of 16 organizations from 8 European countries, quite an heterogeneous team, including organizations from different sectors. We have research and academia organizations such as FBK and Cartif, but also, for instance, the Demokritos Institute in Greece, or the Swedish Environmental Research Institute, to say some of them. But then we also have a group of public administrations who are in our project leading the case studies that we will explain in a few minutes, and a couple of private partners and one NGO. So quite an heterogeneous team in the consortium. We face through Nevermore the following challenges. So we work with and for local communities, especially in regions that are hotspot of climate change effects already, and you will see them in a few slides, where these effects so are already visible, and local communities should learn and how to live and adapt with the effects of climate change. Then we want to make climate science and data more accessible for multiple categories of stakeholders, so not just for research and academia professionals, but for citizens, for policymakers, for also private actors who are affected by climate change. And finally, through our results and tools, set up more effective actions that are not top-down, created only by policymakers, for instance, but shared among a community of stakeholders, so including also citizens and other categories of actors that we involve in our case studies, as you will see. The Nevermore vision is to support excellence in both research on climate science and climate policy. We focus on modeling theory, as you will see, to take a significant step forward to overcome the silo approach in favor of an integrated assessment one, which is effective for evaluating the impacts and risks and interactions of climate change across different sectors, but also adaptation and mitigation measures and strategies and their effectiveness to get to a climate neutral and resilient society. The main objectives of Nevermore are these two. The first one is to develop an integrated assessment framework, which takes into account the needs and requirements of different stakeholders and end users, to deliver a multi-sectoral climate impact assessment and to evaluate adaptation and mitigation strategies in order to reach climate neutrality. But also our project has a main objective to better understand the interactions between climate change impacts, mitigation and adaptation measures to deliver effective policy recommendations. So one of the main results of our projects are policy recommendations, and this will be delivered thanks to the analysis we perform on climate impacts, risks, and mitigation and adaptation policies. Then to continue with the presentation, I will leave the floor to Ivan. I don't know if you can use your microphone, I guess so.
Yes, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the NEVERMORE main pillars and activities are divided into advancing, evaluating, supporting, informing, and uptaking. These 5 pillars are quite relevant in our methodology to evaluate different adaptation and mitigation options. In the first pillar related with advancing, we try to upgrade the William model, that is a system dynamics model, and we will try to integrate some new functionalities and improvements related with climate science and health system modeling, risk and vulnerability, and climate change impacts, and also the integration of social and human systems and the interaction of behavioral change in the modeling. Related with the modeling activities, we will try to cover different scales and approaches, and we will try to integrate the local scale with the national and European global scale in order to evaluate different impacts, adaptation, and mitigation measures, not only covering the economic costs, but also covering the social and environmental aspects of adaptation and mitigation. We also have 5 representative case studies that we will present in the second part of the presentation, but we will use these case studies to cover different approaches in order to upscale data and insights to calibrate the modeling approach of William, and use William to downscale data in order to provide relevant climate and socioeconomic scenarios to develop the approach case study level. And we also have in this part of modeling a catalog of solutions integrating different policy options to cover the adaptation and mitigation. Once we have this methodological approach covered, we have the part of evaluating that is related with the policy making and how to evaluate to provide an ex-ante evaluation of the different effects of mitigation and adaptation policies. We also cover the different scales, and we will try to upscale the effects at local level in order to provide insights to improve William model. And we also try to downscale data and scenarios to evaluate different policies at local level. The supporting pillar try to cover the policy coherence and try to integrate all the insights of the modeling and evaluating in order to develop this climate change integrated assessment framework that will be part of the of our NEVERMORE ICT toolkit that will be covered by different tools. And the last pillars are related with informing in order to provide different policy recommendations and knowledge related with the IPCC and the effects of the impact, risks, and policies, and the uptaking with a training program, massive online course, and collaboration activities with other relevant projects. And in the middle part, we will have the Council of Stakeholders, covering all the different target groups that will help us to develop these methodologies and this modeling approach. Next slide, please. Well, what is William model? William model is an integrated assessment model that was previously developed in MEDEAS and locomotion projects, and try to cover different geographical scales from national to European and global level, and runs simulations covering between 2005 and 2100. in a time step of a yearly basis. As a system dynamics model, it helps us to capture the different interconnection, interlinkages, and effects of application of a policy, and what are the effects in other sectors, in other variables, previous policy application. The model is structured in 8 relevant modules that cover different modules. And in the image, you can identify what are the main modules, as for example, economy, environment, energy, and others. And in Nevermore, we will try to improve the model, integrating some functions to evaluate mitigation and adaptation, behavioral change, and new socioeconomic indicators. And also, we will try to downscale scenarios in order to provide different storylines at case study level. Next slide. Our methodology to evaluate adaptation and mitigation is focused in the IPCC. And we start with the contextualization of what are the effects of climate change. We will develop high-resolution climate dataset at case study level in order to identify what are the main climate hazards. And with this climate hazards that are part of our second step, we will identify what is the exposure, considering all the elements that will be at risk. In the third step, we will develop different vulnerability analysis, covering also the part of vulnerability and fragility by the development of different curves in order to understand what are the effects of climate change in the different elements at risk. And in the fourth step, we will quantify the risk as a value related with what are the effects of different hazards in each element. And finally, we will identify the different measures in order to adapt and evaluate what is the cost of adaptation of each adaptation measures or the cost of inaction. This approach will be follow a case study level, and we will try to integrate by the upscaling of the measures in the global model. Next slide. Okay. The main results of Nevermore are related with the downscaling of climate data in order to provide the algorithms to obtain high-resolution datasets. Our methodology for modeling climate change impacts, risk, adaptation, and mitigation. The integrated assessment model that will be an upgraded version of Williams model. Key performance indicator panel to understand what are the main indicators to evaluate adaptation and mitigation. The catalog explorer that will be a database of adaptation and mitigation measures. The framework of modeling, integrating all the modeling approaches that will be developed during the Nevermore project. The policy briefs covering 6 technical and policy recommendations. The toolkit that it will include 3 different tools, one at the European scale, other at case study level, and other one for gamification. And 2 other results that are the knowledge exchanger, covering all the scientific papers, joint collaboration and joint activities, and another aspect related with the dissemination. And the last one related with the training programs, covering a massive online course and training activities, workshops. Each results have different target groups that are identified. And next slide. These are the tools that covers the ICT toolkit, and we will try to develop these tools covering the different needs and requirements from our councils that are one covering its one local council covering its case study, and other general that is the transnational council involving all the experts that will help us to validate our methodology and to test and improve the modeling approach and the tools that we will develop at the end of the project. These tools, as I explained before, cover different scales and try at case study level to evaluate different measures, at European scale to evaluate policies and visualize what are the results of policy implementation, the gamification that try to create awareness in climate, learning from what are the main effects of climate change. And in the middle, we will have the catalog that could help to find what are the most suitable measures at the different scales, because the catalog will be developed with the premises of cover these scales and try to be aligned between scales. Next slide. Our work in NEVERMORE is scheduling work packages. The first one is related with the project coordination, and the last one, work packages, is related with the communication and dissemination. And we have other work packages that are more in the technical part. The work package 2 related with the integration of all the stakeholder activities and try to identify what are the main stakeholders related with our approach in order to co-design the activities and integrate the socioeconomic aspects in all the modeling steps. For package 3 related with climate science and the downscaling of data, improvements in William in the part of climate modeling and so on. For package 4 related with the design and modeling of the different functions that will be part of William. This will be developed as damage functions. For package 5 related with the catalog development as a review of the different policies that measures that will be part of the catalog. Work package 6 related with the case studies, in which we will try to characterize each case study and identify what are the main vulnerabilities, risks and impacts, and what are the most feasible measures and cost of implementation. And the last one, that is work package 7, related with the ICT toolkit, and try to work in the design and development and deployment of the different tools. Alessia, you can continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ivan. As said before, we are co-designing, developing, and then we'll test our methodologies and tools together with the communities of 5 case studies across Europe. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation, we selected these regions because they are all hotspots of climate change, and they are all different territories because of their geographic and socioeconomic context. So, for instance, we work with an island context, which is in Crete, and there we work with the municipality of Sitia, where the main challenges in the local territory are related to flooding, droughts, and some other that you find here in the slides. And in each of these case study, we have targeted and identified together with the local communities the most vulnerable sectors to climate change. So as you see, among the different case studies, we are targeting different policy sectors. Then we have a mountain region, which is here in Trentino, where we work mainly on winter tourism and on the effects of rising temperatures and unpredictable precipitation. Then we have a case study in the north of Sweden, in the Norrbotten County, which is representative of the boreal region, where there the need is of upgrading the energy system and allocating resources for climate adaptation. So the main policy sectors targeted are first of all energy, and then other that are interrelated. Finally, we have 2 more case studies. One is in the Mediterranean region with the Murcia case study, where the main challenge is related to desertification. And so the main sector targeted is water, but also agriculture. And finally, a wetland, which is represented by the Danube Delta in Romania, where the main challenges are related to environmental and ethic wealth protection, sustainable tourism, land use management, and the main sector targeted are water, but then also tourism, agriculture, and
Alexia,
energy.
you are overtime.
Okay, just to conclude very shortly, because it's something that we mentioned, we work with stakeholders both at the local and transnational level. In each case study, we have local councils that are including different categories of stakeholders with different expertise and knowledge, and a transnational council, which is made of representative of local councils, so from the local levels, but also transversal experts selected all over Europe. How they contribute to NEVERMORE results, they help us in identifying the challenges and priorities at local level and the vulnerable sectors. They help us in imagining future scenarios and defining new measures in both the adaptation and mitigation domains. And finally, together with both the local and transnational council, we actually ask them to provide guidance for the design development of models, of our models and digital tools that in the end they will also test and validate. And that's it. So thank you, and sorry for being a little bit late.
Thank you very much. It's okay. Thank you, Alexia. So stop sharing the screen. Yes, I will share my screen now. Okay. And do you see the screen, please? Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I will try to make a presentation in DISTENDER. I will try to be a little bit shorter because we are a little bit over the schedule, very small, and I want to leave as much time as possible for the discussion. So the title of our project is Developing Strategies by Integrated Mitigation, Adaptation, and Participation to Climate Change Risk. So our project is having a partner from UK, so we have 6.4 million euros, and the rest of the budget is really funded by the UK. Although, of course, originally it was a little bit more than 7 million euros, but this is the procedure. We have 31 partners, and presently we have an affiliated partner to the Ministry of Transport in Austria. It's affiliated to BMK, which is one of our core case studies. So you see, we have only 42 months, so it's a little bit shorter than your projects. We will end on November 25, and then we have 5 core case studies. Guimarães is what we understand in our language, local core case study, is the more local of all of them. It's about 100,000 people in this city. Then Hansen University, of course, Guimarães is represented by policymakers in the city. Hansen University, UAS, is a university which has a document to represent the Netherlands Water Authority. This is a region in the northeast part of the Netherlands with a lot of flooding problems, etc., etc. But in other terms, this university is talking in the name of the authority. So we treat them as policymakers. Turin metropolitan area, this is also represented in this case by themselves. So the metropolitan area council, it is represented by themselves, by the policymakers. Austria government, as I mentioned, BMK, it represented all the country. So this is the largest, one of the largest areas, as I will mention at the end. And they have an affiliated partner, which is the Austria Technology Company, more or less sharing the same budget, so 50% each one. And they just incorporated a few months ago. And finally, the EURAF, this is European Federation of Agriculture and Forestry. This is not a policymaker, in fact, but this, because of the importance of the agricultural for the future climate scenarios until 2050, this project is limited to 2050. They are acting more or less as policymakers, but they are not, of course, but they represent the agricultural part. European Federation of Agriculture and Forestry has a headquarters in Paris, but in this case is represented by a professor in the University of Extremadura, and it covers 2 countries. This is another peculiarity of this case, because the legislation is different. It's the Dehesa in Spain, in the Iberian Peninsula, the Dehesa area with special characteristics for agricultural, cattle, and forest, and the Montado area. Montado is the Portuguese part. And then we have a series of followers live in Ukraine, Miskolc in Hungary, Golea in Slovenia, Gdansk in Poland. BCE represents the city of Valencia in Spain, and finally Alcorcón, it is a city of about 200,000 people, and it's a satellite city from Madrid city, you know. It's very close to where we are now. Well, we had to make some changes because originally the Ukrainian city was the core case study, and then we changed with Turin, who was originally follower because of the Ukrainian war. So we are the coordinators of the project. So some lines about the DISTENDER. Basically, when I hear your 2 presentations, although there is a lot of information in the slide, I mean, we have, please take a view to the last point, decision support system. I mean, my background is physics. We have a very long list in Work Package 5 of modelers, dynamical and statistical modelers. This is one of my questions I have prepared for you in our discussion roundtable. But these models are very expensive in terms of computing. Of course, dynamical are more expensive than statistical. But due to the complexity, as we understood, the call in the text of the European Commission call, it was very much underlined, let's say, the advantages of strategies which were already being taken by different cities in Europe, because this is a call, remember, 2021, the call, but the different strategies have been already tested in many places, many cities in Europe, more than 4,000. There is a list, an Excel file in the Commission we can find in the internet about that. But in most of all these strategies, which have already contracted mostly to private companies to attack the mitigation and adaptation approaches for the climate change, they are paid by cities, by municipalities, by regional governments, and also country levels, but they only point out the advantages in general terms. So this is part of the test of the call when they speak about trade-offs. There are disadvantages which entry in interactions with new strategies. But of course, it's very difficult to ask a company with a contract to speak about negative things or disadvantages. But this is part of the story we have. So because of that, we have a decision support system at the end of the story where policymakers take their policy decisions and all the science, co-creation processes, etc., from the project, they put into in numbers terms, because of course the decision support system is based on a multi-criteria analysis. They cannot work if the machine in mathematical terms, it cannot work if we don't convert it in numbers. So everything is put at the end on this machine, on this tool, which is developed by a company, a software company in Poland, in Gdansk, and it will produce a list of prioritization strategies or robust strategies. So this is basically, I think, the main difference with the other 2 projects, but they are perfectly combined, as I understood from your 2 presentations. So Just some details, because of the limitation of times, just I will speak that on the left, we have the call, the questions from the Commission, and on the right, we have the answers from DISTENDER. So one of the key issues you see, just for reading one of them, and then, of course, in the discussion, we can go into any detail you want. Non-linear impacts and biophysical models for multiple sectors. This is very, very important because of the non-linearity effects in the atmosphere, because all the effects in the atmosphere are very non-linear. I mean, our brain process, as you know, in a linear way. So if we increase the emissions, our understanding is we will increase the pollution. But this is unfortunately not the reality, because when you increase some emissions, sometimes you have a decrease in the pollution on some specific species, etc., etc. So all of these requires numerical, mathematical models, which are very, very expensive. Well, the same here, I would like to understand stakeholder engagements. This is something I would like also to discuss with you about your approaches on that, because we have different workshops. In fact, we have done already 4. We have the last one at the end of this month, so in 1 week and a half or so. The networking activities, of course, and the co-developing strategies and testing the robustness across multiple scenarios. Of course, this is part of the co-developing system and co-creation approaches, but again, we have to combine this with the mathematical maps that we obtain after running the models. In this project, we are running 35 years models. This is a unique situation because due to the computer demand of these mathematical and numerical models, this has not been done before. Of course, we cannot do it if the others they have not done it because of the computer powered capability today. So we have used simple models, but for instance, University of Frankfurt is using dynamical model for specific periods of time until 2015. But the simple models are running for 35 years for 5 SSP scenarios, socioeconomic scenarios. This is the language we use according to the IPCC. Okay, adaptation and mitigation. Different sets of stakeholders and actors are involved in each domain with limited intercommunication. This is very important because there is an analysis work package from the Professor Casper, University of Wageningen in the Netherlands. They analyze the results of the workshops, which have been taken into account with stakeholders. Achieving synergies and integrated climate actions requires effectively linking mitigation and adaptation. While the very local case studies, as for instance, Guimaraes, they think about, of course, adaptation, because, of course, in all these local cases, they are, let's say, driven somehow by the national legislation. And okay, we have already scenarios, SSP 1, 2, 3, even 4 and 5. You know, we have selected only 4, but we have 5 scenarios on that. And we have 2 rounds. First round is what we call the actual city with what's in terms of Austria, Guimaraes, or Huas region, or Turin metropolitan area. That is the city, you know, in between what's, just to use one word. And the round 2 will use the future city, you know, after doing this exercise with the workshops with the different stakeholders. Okay, this is very clear, you know, synergies of adaptation and mitigations you see with natural-based solutions. And here some, let's say, some answers from the DISTENDER, you know. DISTENDER solution, again, applying these models and put it all together at the end in the DSS. Well, in this slide, you see scenarios planning that also was mentioned mainly by Matthias. You know, but we have to consider each scenario from the SSP in the IPCC. We have 3 members. We have the meeting 2 days ago on Wednesday with the IPCC members from working groups 1, 2, and 3, from the Polar Center in Norway, in Italy, University of Salento, and also the Business Economy School in Denmark from Maria Figueroa. Okay, objectives. I mean, it's clear that we have all of these objectives, but again, please put your attention on the decision support system using a multi-criteria decision analysis, as I mentioned during my speech. These are the different sites in the project and also followers. Again, this is the list we showed at the beginning. And this is the downscaling approach. Downscaling for 35 years is a statistical downscaling, but for dynamical downscaling for a small periods of times, also we have that with the Cosmos model in Germany for limited periods of time. Well, this is just some sectors that we are going to underline on the different core case studies. And here you see the integration of all the work packages. So you see here work package 1, work package 10, very important. You mentioned also about the KPI. KPI, in this case, is done by the project monitoring. They have a full work package in order to understand the impact of our project in the society. And the leader is the Adelphi multinational company in Germany. Oh, well, this is just a timeline about the project until 2025. Well, we have experts in all of these areas in the project, bringing together the critical mass of scientific leading institutions, 21 public bodies and 10 non-public institutions. And just this is the list of all the partners. You see in yellow the coordinator, the leaders of each part time is finished, 15 minutes. I put my time in 15 minutes. You see in the green, you see the work package leaders of the different, University of Cologne, Wageningen University, icons in Italy for dissemination and exploitation, ET, the company in Gdansk, in the software company who will develop the decision support system, which I think is one of the key points and the difference with the other 2 projects in our project. University of Frankfurt for this dynamical downscaling, Adelphi, UK Center for Ecology and Hydrology, and in Slovenia, UIRS. In UIRS are the experts on the co-creation processes to organize the workshops. We have 3 different workshops with stakeholders. We started with the first one. As I said, we'll finish in 1 week and a half. For the economy, we have the University of Graz, and also we have a company in Valencia, KVC, who are experts, and they are the leaders of the connection with the 5 core case study, because the customers in our project are the 5 core case study. So our vision of the project is, after our project, there will be a simple methodology to be used by any city, any size in Europe, and follow the procedures we have done in DISTENDER. Of course, they have to pay the different sections according to their budget. The DSS will be in the internet, so they have to feed the DSS. It will be free, of course. And then the results, the policymakers will have a result depending on the policy decisions they decide. If they prioritize the building of hospitals instead of building, let's say, a wall to prevent flooding, they will decide it at the beginning to be one of the inputs of the DSS, together with the robust strategies. By the way, the leader of these strategies is the UK partner. Then you see afterwards all the follows. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. And now I think it's exactly 12:11. So we have 19 minutes for having a discussion. Let me open it again here. Okay. Thank you very much. So, discussion is open, floor is yours, and we can talk. We have 20 minutes until 12:30.
So if you want, I can break the ice.
Yes.
And I just want to, I mean, on one side, to acknowledge a very interesting, let's say, common baseline that these three projects are pursuing, which is for me a very important thing for establish a potential collaboration and leveraging shared results. In the past, it happened that through different projects, even belonging to same call, there were a diversity of scientific approaches, especially around climate change, that when coming to impact assessment, I think a long path has been done in the past 10 years. So I recognized, and especially when Ivan Ramos presented the approach to assess risk and impact through a robust approach, which is based on hazard, exposure, and vulnerability quantification. Even the nomenclature call them elemental risk, to which, I mean, any analysis about vulnerability should be directly connected. I mean, this was not on a common board until a few years ago. I think that IPCC, a recent advancement, even in their notion and definition of climate resilient development, like bridging mitigation, adaptation, and sustainable development goals, is also helping us to promote system dynamics as an essential part of the understanding that so far was somehow considered in, for example, in some of the global pathways, but and projection, but difficult to break down when it comes to the local level, and then where we actually need the support to drive specific action. Of course, this said, there's a lot of work to be done there. For example, I just to pose a question that stays at this level and is related to how you see the possibility of putting and working in parallel and having robust hazard impact assessment model based on the framework that was presented, hazard exposure and vulnerability, fully quantitative, with the complexity of system dynamics, where, you know, qualitatively speaking, causal loops can be easily identified, but then even though technically is of course possible, the complexity of framework creates several issues in producing a fully quantitative system dynamic model. Is this something that in NEVERMORE and DISTENDER is currently under discussion? I mean, do we really can we really actually come to a quantitative definition of this systemic variable, or the way should be to work having, you know, a solid quantitative framework to make assessment, which then also use qualitative variables to depict, for example, the causal loop interaction? What's your understanding or at this stage of the project?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult question to solve, because we are discussing a lot of times in the project how to integrate the approach at local level, in which you can quantify all the specific aspects of climate modeling, and how to integrate in an integrated assessment model. But for example, thinking on probability, on how to integrate this in a model that is running without probabilistic aspects, that is system dynamics. But it's a discussion that we are trying to cover now. And our initial idea is only to put the focus on what are the main climate hazards, and what are the probability of these hazards, and try to integrate these variables as a functions in the model. but I think it's a bit challenge to integrate all these aspects in a model that is running at a global level with a lot of variables. How to quantify the specific influence of an aspect in all the variables and try to to understand what are the effects on the loops and more or less if we try to integrate variables that are not easy to evaluate.
Okay.
Yeah, not least maybe sorry to how then to make this complex modeling framework usable by then our targeted user, whether for understanding we might mention citizen general public or for strategy and policy building from for example local authorities. Yeah, that's okay. We are on the same page more or less.
Yes.
Well, what you are discussing now, I agree with you, of course, but this is one of the reasons why in DISTENDER we put this decision support system, which the Commission immediately identified with an artificial intelligence tool, and then they said no. So the Commission obliged not only that, but they obliged to use the artificial intelligence, but not to develop. In fact, but they put, this is something I wanted to share with you because we are having not difficulties, but some problems somehow with the GDPR, because in our project, the Commission obliged to have a work package 12, led by the coordinator related to ethics in the meetings and the relations with the stakeholders, which are not part of the project. And I just wondering, how do you manage that? Because we have a concept document for that, very detailed, very important. And the stakeholders are preventing when they receive this concept document in English and they have to sign with a list in a table. So your picture cannot be used in the media, etc., etc. This is an important issue in our project now. But in any case, coming back to your point, yes, in order to solve this complex process, because we have the co-creations, we have the policymakers with the policy decisions, and then the models which are describing the non-linearity of the process. The non-linearity, it is mentioned many times in my presentation, it is not just to our brain, because we have the tendency that you increase the emissions, you increase the pollution, but this is not the reality. So the disadvantages of different strategies are taken into account in the system, and they are putting, I like to call the DSS washing machine. Because we wanted to put it at the end, because it tries to solve it, not because we want to not to take into account our own responsibility and leave it to the DSS, but because it's so complex, the process, that everybody puts inputs in the system, and then the policymaker has to take a decision. This is their job. Yesterday, 2 days ago, with the IPCC members, it was clear that the policy has to do their job, take a decision, but this decision should be based on all the arguments produced by the DSS, not by any sector directly, but all together. And then the DSS, as a machine, will produce basically a prioritization. Say if something costs 200 million euros and I have only 10 million euros, it's clear, you need a prioritization of the list of strategies for mitigation and adaptation. So I think this is one of the most important points to distinguish the other two. But I agree with you. Of course, it's very complicated. That, yeah, and any comment? Yeah.
Well, about the GDPR, I mean, I think it's pretty a technical question. It's something personal project, and we have to live with this consent form, and then it happens that I mean, in this kind of project, it's very important. I mean, we are also called to let hear the voices of people that are out there that are not, necessarily linked to the organization of a consortium. So I think it's extremely important to deal with this aspect in the way it has to be done, because the other way around would be really to be closed again in our labs or so, and not really delivering action results to the community at large and society at large. So that's one point. On the other hand, yeah, I mean, we were the system dynamic problem. It's complex already when only looking to the impact of different sectoral sectors on for example on global warming or on climate impacts. But even more complex when we start thinking about mitigation adaptation, because at the end of the day, there are multiple domains that are connected to this solution. They span from infrastructure, let's say gray infrastructural technological upgrade, to natural-based solution and ecosystem-based solution, to behavioral change and systemic change, and ultimately to governance and management approaches. All of these sometimes are intertwined. And that is why, I mean, I feel that having this double layer of analysis, somewhere where you can, yes, depict the complexity in a way that can be used even to build solid narrative and motivation from action across sectors, but then restricting somehow the focus on specific impact and specific domain of mitigation adaptation action. For example, transformation of urban context and city planning and design is a way to break down the complexity into modelable elements, and ultimately to support even the uptake and implementation of action, because we know that it's increasingly important that the projects for which public funds, but even private funds are asked in European context, needs to be very solidly connected, for example, to the European taxonomy. So, for example, I believe that, I mean, as a planner, architect, our duty is also to break down this huge pocket of knowledge into a way to then demonstrate that that project proposed by cities actually have an impact on the critical element of the EU taxonomy for sector. So even the kind of research that we do can find a specialization area, which is of course linked to the evolution of their directives and addresses from European Commission, that become all of a sudden a very useful tool in the hand of even the smallest local authority that is actually using these EU level opportunities and funding. So this multiple level can be handled in many different ways, but the umbrella must be the same. Otherwise, we cannot even discuss among each other and compare approaches.
Yeah. Well, we have only 3 minutes left. I see the people attending this meeting online. Lucia Horner, she is the representative of Steinbeck in my project, in the Work Package 11, responsible for the networking. So she's attending the meeting also there. And Joana Ferreira from the University of Aveiro, and she is the leader of the air quality modeling with their models in the project. So that's good. And also we have persons outside. Okay, so I think it's very, very, very useful, this collaboration, because it is complementary. It's perfect. We can make a project with 21 million euros altogether. Anyway, so I think, I'm not sure what is your plan, but I think that we should make a meeting in the next one. Of course, we have already made the presentation. We should try to elaborate by email some kind of schedule in the presentations, more in detail next time, because we already know the general lines of the project. And we can do it every 6 months or even every year. Our project is shorter than yours, I think 6 months in general terms, a little bit shorter. So what is your opinion about this?
I guess we should organize more regular meetings among us to exchange our experience and results. Also, for instance, for the co-creation part, that is also useful, because I think the engagement of stakeholders is also a challenging part of our project. So maybe we can learn from each other. And second, probably we should keep on identifying events like this where we could propose joint activities, workshops, presentations, maybe next time in person, who knows, but still I think it's very useful to...
What about you, Mattia? Any comment on this? You agree? Yeah. Okay. You are mute. Okay.
We do agree. I mean, let's make it.
Okay. Well, the stakeholder procedure about the GDPR is something urgent for us, because the next workshop will be in January. It's not urgent, but I mean, there are a lot of discussions. We have, of course, a work package leader, it's Barbara from the UIRS Institute in Slovenia. She is doing this part. And they are doing very well, of course, but it is difficult to engage stakeholders, very difficult, and particularly in the meeting when, as a coordinator, I'm sorry, you have to sign the consent document. Everybody's against me.
Yeah, it's a very bureaucratic
if it
stuff.
happens
It's
to
boring.
Because everybody says, Roberto, you have to be flexible. But but this is what my background is physics. I'm not a lawyer, attorney, or something like that. So something is. Oh, now the time is almost
but it is relevant just to mention that in our case we were not obliged to add a work package dedicated, but because from the proposal stage we foresee the appointment of an external ethics advisor. So
me too. We have the same. But we appointed one from the Adelphi company in Germany. But the project officer said that since this company is part of the project, you can appoint one person, but in a different department. And this is approved by the commission, so everybody's happy. We pay them for a little bit, a small amount of money. They approve our deliverable, but now they have to approve in 1 year or something like that the progress. I mean, that's all. We
the
have
monitoring
deliverables.
and the progress,
This is a little bit complicated and tricky, because it affects to the stakeholder attraction, and we need that, for co-creation processes. So it's something that we can discuss even internally or personally between you and me in different talks.
Try to find ways to make GDPR attractive.
Well, that's a good idea. Anyway, thank you very much for attending this meeting. And if you agree, we can convene, let's say, by email. You just take your actions, take directly your decision, contact. We are 3 persons basically, so we can exchange emails and have the idea. But my idea is, in principle, in 6 months or so, I will propose another meeting with more details. So we will have sometimes to make a schedule. Even the meeting can be not only 1 hour and a half, because this was a special one because of the Sustainable Places Conference, which was a special conference to disseminate our projects in a good way, because I think they had a very important attendance list, as far as I know today. Okay, so thank you very much, and we will be in contact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.